Home with God, Chapter 13. Objective observation is impossible. Nothing which is observed is unaffected by the observer. I see that you have deeply internalized what you have remembered. You understand clearly now. Thanks to you, I think I do. I think I've finally grasped and really understood the truth. Be careful. You mean your truth, right? The truth does not exist as an objective reality. Perspective creates perception, and perception creates experience. The experience that perception creates for you is what you call truth. Your truth is what you actually experience. Everything else is what someone else has experienced and has told you about. This has nothing to do with you. There is no such thing as objective reality. No. Objective reality is an oxymoron. Are you saying that nothing is as it appears? I am saying just the opposite. Everything is as it appears, and appearances are based on perceptions, and perceptions are based on perspectives, and perspectives are not objective. They are subjective. They are not something that you experience. They are something that you choose. You just said this a moment ago. It was hard for me then, and it's hard for me now. I choose to have the perspective that I have. You do indeed. That is the process by which you create. That's very difficult for me to believe. Then you will not believe it. With the result that you will not experience it. So if I don't believe that I choose to have any perspective that I wish, then I cannot have any perspective that I wish. Just so. Because this is my perspective. Because that is your perspective. And that will change your perception, which will change your experience, and your experience will reinforce your perspective. But I could argue that I did not choose that perception. It is simply what I observe objectively. It is what you observe given your perspective. You observe nothing objectively. Objective observation is impossible. Another oxymoron. Objective observation is an oxymoron. Yes, nothing that is observed is unaffected by the observer. I am sure that sounds like a lot of New Age spiritual gobbledygook to many people. That's interesting because it's pure science. Science. It is elementary quantum physics. Read any book on quantum mechanics. So you're saying that I affect what I see by the very way that I look at it. Or whether you look at it at all. That's exactly what I'm saying. That is precisely the case. Well, we've certainly gotten off the track here. We've gotten into the marshland of perception theory and quantum physics. It's all about leading you back to your truth. You can't rediscover your truth. You can't remember your truth. You can't reside in your truth until you remember how you get there. We are talking here about how you get there. This dialogue is taking you to where you have always wanted to go. Home. If you can get there before you die, you will never worry again about death. You will never be afraid of dying. Isn't that what you wish to achieve with this conversation, for yourself and for everyone else? Yes. Then our discussion of perception theory and quantum physics has not been a diversion at all. And now perhaps you understand why we are approaching life and life after death from this angle. So you are confirming now that there is life after death? No. No? No, there is no life after death. There is no life after death? No. In fact, there is no such thing as death at all. And that is the seventh remembrance. Death does not exist. But I know that you think that it does. And so, for you, it absolutely does. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about perceptions and the perspectives from which they arise. So we've come full circle. This entire conversation is circular. If you haven't already noticed that, you will. This is not a straight line dialogue. We are moving in swirls here, spiraling back to many important points many times. Not just twice, but perhaps 3 or 4 times. This will be evident to you as our conversation continues, and this will not be accidental. This will be a quite intentional redundancy. What is being discussed here is nothing less than the cosmology of the cosmos, the secrets of all life, the expeditions of the soul after death, the nature of time and space, and at least 2 ideas that will rock the cosmology boat. And sometimes you have to hear things more than once to really be able to absorb them. So let's move on. We've much to cover. Ready? Ready. So let me repeat here then, just to be clear, that your perspective, that is how you look at something, creates your reality both during this lifetime and after it. So if I don't think that there is a life after death, there won't be one? Oh, there will be one for sure. You can't change ultimate reality, but you can change your experience of it. That is why I have said, it is impossible to live or to die without God, but it is not impossible to think that you are. If you think that you are living or dying without God, you will experience that you are. You may have this experience as long as you wish. You may end this experience whenever you choose. All of which leads us to the 8th remembrance. You cannot change ultimate reality, but you can change your experience of it. I'm trying to understand exactly how that works, what that means. I'm looking inside my personal experience to see if I can bring some awareness to that based on my own walk through life. Good. That's a very good process. That's a wonderful way to begin. Just don't ever let yourself get stuck there. What does that mean? It means always keep your mind open to things that you may not have personally experienced. Okay, I've got my mind open. In this case, let's go back to something that you can pull up from your own memory. Talk about taking something from your own walk through life. Did you ever find yourself out walking when suddenly it began to rain? Of course, more than once. Good. Now, did you experience that moment, the reality of that rainfall, as an annoyance and a bother, or as a wonder and a delight? Well, I can remember actually experiencing both. I remember one time that this happened when I absolutely experienced it as a bother. I was furious that it had started raining. I ran for cover as fast as I could, but it was no use. I got soaked. Another time I remember walking with my young lady friend of mine on a summer's day and the sky opened. We were in a park lot with lots of space, and the young woman abruptly tore her clothes off and began dancing in the rain. She was dancing and hopping and jumping for joy, and I was standing there dumbfounded, my soaked head of hair falling in streaks across my forehead. She laughed at me and dared me to join her, so I did, and we danced around that park for almost 5 minutes before the police came. The officer was very nice. It was a woman, actually, and she simply asked us to put our clothes back on because she did not want to have to arrest us for indecent exposure or becoming a public nuisance. All three of us laughed, and we followed her request. But it was a moment in my life I will never forget. It was sheer, unbridled joy. It was joyful mischief. And of course, I knew about that moment, which is why I used this particular example. Now let me ask you a question. What was different about the rain? I'm sorry? In what way was the rain in the first incident different from the rain in the second? Was it wetter? Was it raining harder? Were the water drops colder or bigger? No, everything was just about the same, actually. It was no more stormy or furious during the first rain than it was during the second. Both were just nice summer showers. So what was the difference in the two experiences? The way I looked at them, my perspective. In one instance, I had on a business suit and was heading for a very important meeting, and my perspective was that the rain was a nuisance. More than a nuisance. It was an intrusion on my plan. It was an obstacle in my way. And in the other instance, I was dressed quite casually and had no specific time when I needed to be anywhere. It looked like the rain could be fun. Yes, and who created those perspectives? I did, of course. You could have decided that the business meeting wasn't that important, or that you showing up a little messed up would be completely understood and wouldn't matter, yes? You could have seen it that way, yes? Yes. So now think of the rain as ultimate reality. You couldn't change the fact that it was raining, but you could change your experience of the rain by changing the way you looked at it. You couldn't change ultimate reality, but you could experience ultimate reality any way that you wished. This is the biggest secret of life. But it isn't always so easy. It is always so easy. But if I changed the way I looked at certain things, then all the drama would go away. Now we're getting to it. For instance, that seventh remembrance, death does not exist. Gosh, if humanity as a whole actually embraced that as its truth, where would all the drama be? How could we get angry or be sad or mourn the loss of our loved ones? What would the Italians do? That's very funny. Do you think Italians will think so? Of course they will. They'll laugh the loudest. Okay, but I really, can this be true? It's one thing to say that there is life after death, but it's another thing to say that death itself does not exist. You have said something enormously important here. You make it sound as if this is something new. In just about every place I've ever been quoted, no matter what religion, no matter what culture, no matter what time period or context, I've been correctly described as declaring that death does not exist. Nor in the way that most of you think of it, which is as the end of all life. There is no such thing as the end of life. So death as a human experience does exist. It is the end of your present physical existence, yes. That experience is over at the time of your death, but life itself is not. If you have a belief in God, you must have a belief in eternal life, because the gods of all religions declare it. What if I don't believe in God? That may change what you experience, but it will not change what is so. What you will experience is what you believe, and what you believe depends upon your perspective. There is no way, there's no set way that it is. There is no set way that it is. There is no one thing that occurs with everyone. There are set things that occur, but you may not know they are occurring. This is starting to become very confusing. Sorry, but the truth is that at the moment of death, you will experience what you believe, and your belief will be based on what you perceive, and your perception will be based on your perspective. And is there no chance for my perception to change? Absolutely there is. Just as in your life before death, your perception can change in your life after death. What could or would cause that? A change in your perspective. Seeing things a new way. Seeing things a new way. But what could cause that? A lot of things, including your decision in the moments after your death that the way you are presently seeing things isn't working. That is, that it is not bringing you an experience you choose to have. Such a decision would immediately alter your experience. Okay, suppose that is there any way that I can talk to you into just describing exactly what occurs at the moment of death and go on from there? I would be happy to talk about the alternatives, but, as I've said, it will be different for every person. Give me some of the alternatives then. You're asking a very big question, You really want to get into this right now? Yes, I've waited long enough. I want to know what happens after people die.